Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Today's guide's going to be a beginner's guides to the tanks, or known as the Vanguards in Marvel Rivals. I'm just going to say I'm a Bronze 2 player, so this guide is intended just for beginners. It's not meant to be an advanced guide. I have watched a lot of other videos, but it's really more just to give you like a general overview of what most of the tanks in the game do for beginners, how they operate, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and stuff like that. So if we go into the tanks, we've got Hulk, Groot, Thor, Peni Parker, The Thing, Venom, Magneto, Captain America, and Doctor Strange. I'm not going to be covering Groot and Peni Parker, because even though Groot is it says he's only a difficulty 2 player hero, he's actually more complicated than you might think. To actually play him well is really complicated. So I'm not really going to be covering him, and I'm not going to be covering Peni Parker as well, because she's another more complicated hero. So we're going to focus on all the others. So we'll do them in order of left to right. So we'll start with the Hulk. Now, I'm not really going to do an exact read through of the Hulk, of all the abilities, just how they play, okay? So the Hulk is what we would call a dive tank, okay? So I think because this is set for beginners, I might explain some concepts here. So tanks are what are known as vanguards. They generally have a lot of health in comparison to other characters, and they almost always have some sort of defensive ability. Their main job is to, like, tank, but they also do different things depending upon the tank that you're working on. Okay, so the Hulk is a dive tank. The thing that makes him a dive tank is his jumping ability, right? So the Hulk can charge up his jumping ability and then jump around the map, which he should be doing. It takes about 0.7 seconds to charge up his ability. If you are going to be playing him, what you should do is you should go into the settings and under hero, change this from hold to not hold. The advantage of doing this is that, like, every time that you jump, if you tap the space bar, it'll start charging up his jumping ability, and then you can jump around again. So, because the Hulk's jumping ability is unlimited apart from the 0.7 second cooldown, that's one of the things that makes him a dive tank. Now, he's mainly a melee character. He does a considerable amount of damage up close and personal. He has one defensive ability, which is his indestructible shield, indestructible guard, which they just call the Gamma Shield. So when you pop it, it puts a shield around the Hulk and any of his allies. One advantage of doing this is that it charges the ultimate, but the big main advantage of it is it's his main defensive ability, right? So while he's in it for 3 seconds, I believe, he doesn't take any damage. So it's very useful for jumping in, popping. It does block certain ultimates as well, but really, as a beginner, the way that you want to use it is when coming in with a team brawl, or when you've jumped in. So you jump in, you pop his shield, and then you go punch him. Now, his other ability is his right-click ability, which basically what it does is, it does big damage. It does have a cooldown of, I think it is 6 seconds. So as a beginner, you really just want to be using this when you're up close and personal. So when you're right in someone's face for extra damage. On a more advanced level, it does have cleave, so it will attack multiple targets, as you can see here. But really, that's what the Hulk wants to do. So he wants to do two things. He wants to be diving around, going into the backfield, and killing supports, and then jumping back out, or moving in with his team in a team sort of brawl scenario, popping his guard, and then punching the enemy. Now, his ultimate is actually really powerful. So what it does is, when you use it, he goes into Monster Hulk form. So the Hulk normally has 750 damage. So I'm just going to take a whole bunch of damage so you can see what happens here. So what you want to do with this ability is you want to jump in, do as much damage as you can, get as low as you can, and then pop it. And then his health goes up to 1500. And his right-click cooldown goes down to 1 second. So if you have the ult, it's time to become more aggressive. But that's really the Hulk in a nutshell. You always want to be charging up his jumping ability so you can jump around the map. One thing that you can do as well is that you can, if you jump up and you hold the space bar, if you're on console, it will actually allow you to jump from wall to wall. He can't climb, but he can grapple onto a wall. You just have to hold down shift when you make contact with the wall. So you can see here, I can jump here, come in, pop my shield, boom, done. Now, his last ability is his E ability. Now, this is one of the things that makes Hulk a little bit more of a more advanced character. It's a more advanced ability. So what it does is, when you hit someone with it, it stuns them for about 3 seconds. While they're, the official term is they're exiled. While they're exiled, right, they can't take damage. You can't, only the Hulk can damage them, right? So if I pop the E ability and then I punch them, they go out of it. So this ability has multiple uses. The first use of it is to use it to shut down a healer for 3 seconds. So you jump in, you pop the exile on a healer. So to give you an example, so we've got a healer here. So let's imagine this bot on the left is a healer. So I jump in, pop it, and then I immediately move on to the other target. And it takes them out for 3 seconds. You can also do that with, it works on tanks as well. So that 3 seconds can mean a lot in a team fight, right? On a more advanced level, it can be used to shut down ults. But that's more of an advanced level. But it can do that. So the Hulk is, like I said, he's a dive tank. He's really good. Like, on a base level, you're going to be using him as a dive tank. One thing that I would say about him, though, if you're going to be jumping into the back line a lot, you need to keep an eye on your health. Because he's not Venom. He doesn't have the survivability of Venom, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind about him. As for what he's... Now, the thing is, he's only melee for the most part. So it's his dive ability, it's his jumping ability that makes him able to get after people. So when I say dive, just in case, because if you're watching this, you're probably a beginner. Dive is characters that go after other characters in melee. They generally tend to have fast movement abilities, like the Hulk over here with his jump. And that's really the Hulk in a nutshell. You want to be doing two things: jumping into the background to go after supports, and supporting your team in a team-up brawl when you're rushing towards a point with your shield. That's really the basics of the Hulk. So we'll move on to the next hero, which is Thor. Now, Thor is a damage dealer for a DPS. So the thing that makes him a damage dealer is his F ability. Now, when you look at Thor on the screen, you'll see these 3 hammer icons. These indicate Thor Force. And if you look at the bottom right, you'll see that there's 2 abilities that use 1 Thor Force, and 1 ability that uses 3, and then there's the E, which doesn't use anything. So basically with Thor, what you want to do is, he's a brawler. He wants to fight up close and personal, right? So what you want to do is pop your E, kill somebody, and then that was his F ability. So that was pop his F. So what you want to do with him is you want to pop his F ability, kill whoever you can, generally a tank, but just kill who's ever in range. And then what you're going to do is get close, put his E, and then pop it again. That's pretty much the Thor in a nutshell, right? That's pretty much the cycle that you want to be going on. Thor is really good at dealing with other tanks, especially melee tanks, he's really good at dealing with them. Because his E ability charges up his Thor force, and being close to Thor when he's in his awakened state, which is the F ability, is actually really dangerous. So Thor is relatively simple to use, because he really just has the same cycle. Now, one thing to note is that his left ability and his shift ability will give him bonus health. So if I right click, it throws a hammer, which gives me 100 bonus health. If I throw the hammer again, I get another 100 bonus health, right? He also has this dash ability, which does damage and pulls someone back, which makes him a bit of a dive. But really, it's his awakened state that is his most powerful, as you can see there. So that's pretty much Thor in a nutshell. Thor is really good at countering other tanks, especially melee tanks, right? If you're dealing with an opponent who's using like a 2-tank build and you only have 1 tank, and it's like 2 melee tanks, so say a Venom Hulk or a Venom Strange, if you're only solely tanking, then Thor can be a really good counter to that. Because in his awakened state, he just does so much damage, as you can see here. Now, one thing to keep in mind about Thor is, apart from the E ability, attacking people in combat also charges up his E a little bit faster. No, not his Thor force a little bit faster, sorry. But yeah, that's pretty much Thor in a nutshell. He's a really good counter to dive as well, because of his awakened state. He's gonna do a lot of damage to peel. So another term is called peeling, which is when you get someone off your supports in the back, right? So Thor is pretty good at peeling because of his awakened state, which is his F ability. He can do so much damage in a short term that he can really force the divers away. So that's pretty much the Thor in a nutshell. Not really much to say about that at the basic levels. His ultimate ability is like an area of effect that does damage to an area. It's really good if you pop it when you've got a whole group that are trying to take a point, which is like an objective. But really, it's his awakened state and his E ability that makes him really powerful. But just something to keep in mind, if you don't have full Thor force and you're getting close to dying, use the left shift and the right click to get bonus health. Now the right click and the left shift are both on the same cooldown. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can't use both of these at the same time. The next one is Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange is also a bit of a brawler in that his right click does a lot of damage at short range. It also has an advantage of that it charges up his E ability, which is an area of effect near him. So Doctor Strange is a bit of an interesting character in that the main thing he's got going for him is his shield, which is his right click. It shields up to 800 damage. So he's a really good counter to dive characters, but he's also useful in a ranged comp because he can use his shield to protect, because your allies can shoot through the shield, but your enemies can't shoot through it. Right, they have to do damage to the shield first, so he's really useful in that respect of when it comes to dealing damage. So he's really good at close range, especially with, as you can see here, his right click does, his left click does it, his main attack does an incredible amount of damage. Now, one thing to keep in mind about him is, so his abilities are, you got his right click, which is a short-ranged, high-damage burst. Then you've got his left shift, which makes him fly into the air. This is really good with dealing with other tanks or other melee characters. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when he gets to 100... Now, when you use this ability, you'll see something charging up at the bottom. That's his dark magic meter. When it gets to 100, his E ability will be at its most powerful. So So he's a really good he's really good at controlling space near him, right? That's one of the things that's really good about him. His E ability, which releases dark magic to damage nearby enemies, means that he's really good at dealing with enemies that are close to him. But his shield ability also means that you can use him in a ranged comp, in a team with lots of ranged characters, because your shield can shield them while they shoot through it. The shield can also stop ultimates like Magneto's ultimate, or it can also stop Emma Frost's ultimate as well. But really, that's the main thing about him. His ultimate ability is a stun that stuns anyone near him for about 3 seconds. Really useful to pop in a team fight, but it's very difficult to get the entire team with it, because if they see you moving close to them, they're probably going to start moving away. His other ability, which is his F ability, which I'm not going to cover, it's his teleport. This is really more of an advanced ability. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to one of my favorites, which is Venom. As you can see, Venom is a difficulty 1 hero. Just because he's difficulty 1 doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have a high skill ceiling. But Venom is pretty simple. So he's pretty much one of the main dive tanks. He is one of the only tanks that can actually climb. Now, the thing about Venom is that he has a really simple sort of style. So what you want to do is you want to get high, you want to pop his Frenzied Strike, then you want to press his right click, and then you want to kill anyone who's close to him. That's pretty much Venom's in a nutshell, and then you just want to swing out. Now, Venom can climb like Spidey, so it means that a lot of the times when you're playing with him, you're going to be wanting to get good angles on the enemy, but that doesn't mean that you should be in the front line. Now, Venom, unlike other tanks, only supports himself. The thing that makes him such a really good tank, though, is his E ability. So what happens is, I'm just going to stand here so I can take damage. What happens is when you pop his E ability, he gets bonus health based on how much health he lost. So you want to get it down to about 200, and you want to pop his E ability for bonus health, right? And then once you've lost your bonus health, you want to swing out there and get healed, and then just come back in and do it again. Now, if you have his ultimate ability, what you can do is you can swing in, pop that, boom. Now, his ultimate ability, that's the basic combo for his ultimate ability. What it does is, he burrows underneath for free movement, and after a duration or pressing the right click, he devours enemies, and he gains bonus health based on the enemy's current health. So the more health that an enemy has that he attacks, the more bonus health he gets. So really what this is good for is going after tanks. So Venom's strengths are his ability to pop in and do damage and target a lot of enemies with his cellular corrosion, which is his right click. His weaknesses is he doesn't really do a lot of damage. He doesn't really do a lot of burst damage apart from popping in and his cellular corrosion, right? So once he's used up his abilities, you're going to be relying on his main attack, which is infinite and has a range of 15 minutes to take enemies down, right? So he's really good at doing 2 things. He's really good at doing 3 things. Going after supports, dealing with enemy dive characters, and being a bit of a frontline to take the attention off your allies, like I'm doing here. Like getting right in front and then popping your health, and then hopefully your healers are healing you. So one thing about Venom is that he can struggle against DPS characters that do a lot of damage up close, like Wolverine and Iron Man. So that's just something to keep in mind. That really applies to almost all tanks. But that's just something. So that's pretty much Venom in a nutshell. He just wants to be getting up high. Now, with his swing ability, which is his left shift ability, it has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Right? So you generally don't want to be using this to jump, to dive in. You want to be using it to get out. So what I would do is I would get an angle on the enemies here. Use my frenzied arrival, pop my right click ability, and kill them. And then once they start killing me, pop the E ability, do some damage. And if I can take out a target, I take out a target. And then if I can't, I pop my swing and I get out. Now, one of the things when you're playing with Venom is you want to go into the settings. And turn off easy swing. Right? The others hold to wall crawl, hold to run on wall crawls. You can decide, up to you. But you want to turn off easy swing, because what will happen is easy swing will automatically select grappling points to initiate the swing. So you don't have as much control with the easy swing. Whereas if you don't have easy swing on, you can control where you swing. But so for the most part, you want to be using his swing ability to get out, not get in. But if you have his ultimate, then at that point you can use his. So what you would do is you would pop in, boom, right click. And that's going to give me enough time to use my swing. And then once my health goes low, get out. That's really Venom in a nutshell. The tricky part about playing Venom is knowing when you should be diving the back line or when you should be helping the front line. If you're constantly... like, Venom is one character that you generally don't want to be using as your solo tank. He's really good as a secondary tank, but not as a solo tank. So that's something to keep in mind with Venom. Next, we're going to talk about Captain America. Now, I'm going to say Captain America is... He's also a dive tank, but rather than like Venom, who pops in, does a lot of damage, and then wants to pop out, he wants to continually harass the enemy. So one thing that you should do with him is go into the settings and get rid of hold to raise shield and hold to dash. The reason for this is you pop his left shift, and now he has an unlimited speed boost, and he jumps a lot higher, right? So this is what he wants to do. He wants to go after supports and anybody who's weak on the enemy. So pop in, bang, do damage, use his ability, boom, move to the next one, and then when your health starts getting low, get out of dodge, find a health pack, and then jump in again. That's pretty much how you want to play him, right? Now, one thing about him is that when you do a melee attack, you'll see these shields pop up. Once he gets the blue shields, right, it'll actually shoot out a shield that auto-targets the enemy and ricochets. So that's pretty much Cap in a nutshell. The trick to playing Cap is that he is a difficulty 3 hero for a reason, because he's a lot more difficult to play than Venom, but he has the ability to harass for a lot longer. So he has a shield, which is his right-click ability, which will reflect projectiles back at enemies. Now, it can actually reflect Iron Man's ultimate, so it's very useful. So a lot of times what you want to do is charge an enemy, pop your shield, get in there, bang, move on to the next one. Bang, when it starts to get dicey, get out. Jump out of there, find a health pack, run away, come back, boom. So what Captain America wants to do is keep the attention on himself. He wants to be continually harassing the enemy. He is a harder character to play because of this, because he's like a more difficult version of Venom, but he has more sustained ability to harass the enemy than Venom does. Venom, okay, so his abilities are, his right click is a shield, his E ability does damage to multiple enemies in an area, it ricochets off enemies, and his F ability is a charge. So the F ability can be used in one of two ways. It can be used to charge into an enemy, so I'm going bang F. So if an enemy starts trying to run away, you can pop your F to close the distance again. So you pop an E, and then you pop his F, and then you just get in there, bang, move on to the next one. Now, Captain America is not a really high damaging character, so he's really optimized to going after supports and DPS characters, right, that don't have a lot of health. So that's pretty much Captain America in a nutshell. So he's not Venom. So he doesn't really want to tangle with other tanks. He wants to be going past them to get to the juicy support. If you want to start trying to play dive characters, you should probably start with Captain America. Because he's a Vanguard and he has more health, it can get you used to being able to melee. Now, the thing about him is, his other ability is his diving strike, which is similar to Venom's diving strike. He just dives into an area. It has a cooldown of, I think, 12 seconds. So you can't use it that often, but it's a lot easier to pull off than Venom's ability. Because by using the left shift, you can jump up to get the height that you need to do it. But that's really Captain America in a nutshell. So if you're playing against a Captain America player and he's doing a lot of damage, a good counter to him is Thor. Thor will counter Captain America because Thor in his awakened state can do a lot of damage, which can force Captain America back. Now, one thing about him is his ultimate is actually really powerful. What it does is he gets bonus health. So he basically becomes like almost unkillable for a certain period of time. And he leaves a trail behind him that deals damage, that gives bonus health to your allies. So he does actually provide healing. The next last one is Magneto. Not the next last one, there's two more after this. So Magneto is mainly a defensive tank, right? His main ability is a ranged ability that has some area of effect, right? But he has two defensive abilities. His first defensive ability is... So you'll see here that he has E and F. He can't use these both at the same time. So you can either give a shield to an ally, which has a 12-second cooldown, or you can give a shield to yourself. You can't do both at the same time. So he's really good in ranged comps and in dive comps, like giving your dive a shield so that they can go after the enemy and absorb 3 seconds of damage is actually really good. His left shift ability is a shield. It has a very low duration, but it also has a very low cooldown. It's more useful for blocking ultimates, such as Magneto's ultimate, Iron Man's ultimate. That's really its main use, right? Is you're just going to pop it here. As you can see, my ally can shoot through it. And then you've got his other ability, which is right-click ability. It does a lot of damage, and once it's fully charged, as you can see here, the bar will go purple. When you use it, it does a lot of damage, and it knocks the enemy back. So Magneto used to be the ultimate option for solo tank before Emma Frost came out. He still has his uses. Now, because he's a ranged character, you still want to use him as a tank. So say, get in here, pop my shield on me, and then stay in front of my allies in order to shield them with my extra health. So you don't want to be sitting in the back line with him. You want to be using your shield abilities to create space, right? He does medium damage in terms of his ranged ability, so it has a bit of area of effect as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind. His ultimate ability, what it does is, it absorbs all projectiles, and then you drop it on an enemy. It's really useful if you're dealing with a lot of ranged enemies, because their projectiles will be absorbed. It can also absorb Iron Man's ultimate ability, which is something to keep in mind. But really, Magneto is really simple. You just want to be using, you want to be shooting, you want to be making space, popping your shield on yourself, and making use of his health. Second last one is the Thing. Now, the Thing is a bit of a weird one because he's mainly a melee character, but unlike, say, he does have a bit of team support, defensive support. So when you pop your E ability, it gives you and an ally damage reduction, and it'll send you to them. So a lot of times what he wants to do is charge in, jump back to his enemy. Now the good thing, his main ability does damage, but the good thing about his right click is, as you can see here, it does damage to all enemies within a 10-meter range in front of him. Right, so if you're getting targeted by multiple DPS or you're getting dived upon, he's really good for punishing dive. So as you can see here, it does damage to both of them. So he's absolutely really good for punishing dive. So his main attack does good damage up close and personal. But a lot of the times you're going to be using his right click ability, because a lot of times the enemy's going to be trying to run away from you. So that's really him in a nutshell. He has up to 2 charges of his E ability. So you want to use his E ability for 2 reasons. To get to the back line, to defend someone, and to get to the front line to help someone attack. So he really plays around his allies quite a bit. His ultimate ability does damage in front of him. So what you would do is you would pop it, and then you would bang, bang. Now, keep in mind, with his ultimate ability, it does stun enemies when they come down. But if he gets killed in the animation, it'll stop the ult. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But really, he's a brawler. He wants to be up close and personal. Now, this doesn't mean that you should be rushing off to fight the enemies with him. You want to stay close to your allies and just make it difficult for your enemies for them to get killed. So if a tank starts coming after them, you're going to pop in there, use his punch. They're going to take damage, or they're going to back away, or they're going to die. So that's really the Thing in a nutshell. Last, we come to Emma Frost. Emma Frost is a difficulty 3 hero. There's a lot to her, but she's not really that complicated. So the first thing is her right click does a shield, similar to Doctor Strange in that you can shoot through it, but enemies can't. They have to deal damage. The shield has a 3-second cooldown. So her main ability is like a laser beam. That does damage up close, and it powers up, as you can see there, right? So really what you want to do with her is use her like a bunker. So move forward, pop the enemies, take it out, move forward again, pop another shield. Now, she also does have some other abilities. So her E ability is the Psychic Spear, which what it does is it just pops up with this thing that you can... It's similar to Venom's Cellular Corrosion ability, in that when you attack it, it does damage to the enemy, irrespective of where they are, except for if they're more than 15 meters away. So it's a really good ability for forcing dive characters off you, because as soon as you pop it, they're going to start immediately trying to move away if they know what's good for them, so that they don't take damage, right? Her second ability her other ability is her left shift. When she does this, she pops into diamond form, and she only has melee attacks, but she has damage reduction. A good combo for when she is in diamond form is to pop your shift, use your E ability, choke slam, punch, punch, kick. That will most of the time really kill DPS or get their health down so low that they'll start running. Now, her ultimate ability is actually really powerful. It has a bit of a cooldown, a bit of a time up to use. So what it does is, it does damage to all enemies in front of you. And if they get close enough, they start moving towards you and they stop. It will actually stop ultimates. So it is a very powerful ultimate ability. So she's really good against dealing with dive. She's pretty much good in almost every comp because she can move forward, pop your shield, use the F ability and then pop another shield. And that's really it, really. So that's pretty much all the tanks of Marvel Rivals discussed. So we're going to go into some specific things about some general overviews about the tanks that I didn't cover. So like we said, Bruce Banner is a dive tank. His jump ability makes it so that he can jump in and out of combat. So a lot of the time, so he's somewhat similar to Venom. The advantage that he has over Venom is that his spacebar has a much shorter cooldown it's only 0.7 seconds, but he doesn't have the survivability of Venom. Next we come to Thor. Thor is a damage dealer, right? He specializes in doing damage in short distances, right? Up close and personal. Of all the tanks, he's probably the highest in, apart from maybe Groot, who I'm not covering, he's probably the highest in terms of damage dealing potential. He's quite simple. You just want to get into his awakened state and just do tremendous amounts of damage, pop his E ability to build up his Thor force, and then just go back into his awakened state again. When you're in the awakened state, whether you're killing enemies or doing damage, you're going to be doing so much damage that you're just going to be forcing them back. Doctor Strange is more... His right shield ability is defensive. Your allies can shoot through it, but he also has really good close range abilities with his projectile, which does really good damage at close range because it has a very slow sort of traveling time, so it's very good for damaging at close range, combined with his E ability. Venom is your prototypical dive tank. There's two main ways to use him. The first way to use him is to either dive the back line and to be a nuisance in the front line to force the enemies back. Because his main ability has some range on it, has 15 meters of range, and it has unlimited use, he's actually really good at doing sustained damage over time with his main attack. So where Venom is actually really good is if you're playing against an enemy team that has a lot of range. If you're dealing with an enemy team that has a lot of ranged abilities, not flyers but ranged, right, he can be very useful in that respect because he can force them back. Whereas Thor is better if you're dealing with an enemy team that has dive in it, because he's very good at forcing dive back with his awakened state. So because of his ability to generate Thor force with his E ability up close and personal, it means that he's very good up close and personal. Whereas Venom, while he does have burst damage in terms of his diving ability and his cellular corrosion, he's really more good for doing sustained damage over time. Captain America is a harasser. Unlike Venom, who wants to get in there and kill somebody and then get out, Captain America really just wants to harass and be as much of a nuisance to the enemy as he possibly can. That's really the best way to use him. Magneto is a defensive character with some ranged ability, with a defensive character with a main ranged ability. Really what he does is he helps the team, right? By shielding team members, shielding himself, popping his temporary shield to stop ultimates. Really, he's the ultimate defensive character. The Thing is a combination of a brawl and a defensive character, right? His cleave ability makes him really good at dealing with multiple enemy heroes that are up close and personal. And his right-click ability really forces dive characters back. And his E ability allows him to get to allies quite quickly, which means that he can support an attack or support a defense. And Emma Frost is really a sort of all-rounder. She does good damage up close and personal, and she does good damage at ranged, like 10-15 minutes, like medium range. She's one of the best solo tanks in the game because of her tech. But that's really what... She's really a good all-rounder. Like most of the tanks, the only disadvantage that she has is apart from Magneto, she doesn't really do much in the range department, but she does have her shield, and her shield can block Magneto's ultimate and Iron Man's ultimate. Because the shield has quite a low cooldown, you can pretty much almost spam it, so there's no reason not to be using it. Only one thing that I would say when using it is that when you do use it, what you want to do is you don't want to have it too high, like up here like this. What you want to do is you want to have it like a little bit lower into the ground so that it protects you. Maybe a bit higher than that, but that's how you want to be using it. She can't shield the entire team unless they all go in a single line, but it will stop a lot of damage. Alright, this was G-Man's guide to the Vanguards of... Basic guide to the Vanguard, beginner's guide to the Vanguard, the Vanguards of Marvel Rivals. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I did this video initially in reverse order, so if you notice that the end has been swapped, that's the reason why. So yeah, this was G-Man Gaming Reviews. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Signing off.